Hi, thank you so much for joining us on a new webinar series that we are implementing to announce our application assistance program. Today we are going to be talking about, should I apply for Social Security disability? So today's webinar is aimed at if you are thinking about potentially applying for Social Security disability, but you don't know what to expect and have additional questions. That is the purpose of today's webinar. Unfortunately, as always, we can't take live questions on the live webinar, and I have a hard time responding to questions left in the comments below on the replay. So if you do have specific questions about your situation and whether or not you should apply for Social Security disability and whether or not you may qualify for Social Security disability, please do reach out to us. We do provide our contact information at the end of the webinar, and there will be a link in the description below. We'll put it on the live as well, where you can actually apply to be a part of our application assistance program. We open it in May, and we're going to open it again in November. So if you're not ready to go now, that's okay. Looking forward to November. And we do take initial applications in between those times, but in May and November especially, we have a little bit of a greater focus on the initial application process. So without further ado, let's see if I can get this going. Okay. So today on the webinar, we are going to talk about Social Security disability basics, and then we will talk about what are Social Security disability benefits. We'll talk a lot about the application process and some of the things that you can expect to provide to Social Security if you ultimately do decide to apply, and then additional considerations. And then, as I mentioned, this webinar is our first webinar in our new series where we are launching the application assistance program. And we'll talk a little bit about what that is at the very end and whether or not it might be something to help you on your Social Security disability journey. A little bit about me. My name is Caitlin Wildoner. I am the founding attorney of Beacon Disability, PLLC, which is a law firm based in Florida. We do assist clients throughout the country with their agency level Social Security disability matters. And if we, for some reason, cannot help you, we do try to connect you with somebody who can. So if you have questions, concerns, want to know if we can help, please always feel free to reach out. And if we can help you, we absolutely will. And if we cannot, we do try to connect you with somebody or at least a resource that can help get you started in the right direction. So, Social Security disability basics. If you're at the stage where you are thinking about applying, but you're not quite sure and you don't know what the, different programs are and what the requirements are and all of that, that's the purpose of today's webinar. And so basically there are two Social Security disability programs. There's Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI benefits, and there's Supplemental Security Income, or SSI benefits. The SSDI benefits require that you have paid into the system for a certain amount of time. Typically, we say that's 5 of the last 10 years. So that you may hear us ask, or another lawyer ask, have you worked 5 of the last 10 years? And that's what we're trying to understand is SSDI going to be an option for you? If you have not worked 5 of the last 10 years, then you may qualify for SSI. SSI, instead of that work requirement, is going to require that you have a minimal amount of income and assets. And so if you are single, you cannot have more than $2,000 in assets. And if you are married, the two of you together cannot have more than $3,000 in assets. That does not include one home that you live in and one car that you use to drive, but anything above and beyond that, for the most part, is going to qualify. Same with income. If you were a stay-at-home parent and your significant other has been working and they are still working, but you have not worked and you maybe, have depleted funds and savings, if his or her income puts you above the income threshold, then SSI may also not be an option. And so when it comes down to the income, what I'll usually tell you is to call Social Security directly. They have the calculator that they can determine, because it does depend on factors, including how many people are in the household, such as how many children you may have, things like that. So it's not just a straight, the way the assets are is 2,000 if you're single, 3,000 if you're married. Income is a little bit more variable. So that's the differences in the programs. Where they are the same is they both require that you be disabled and unable to work for a period of at least 12 months due to physical and or mental impairments. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be disabled for 12 months before you can even apply. But what it does mean is that you have to be expected to be disabled for at least 12 months. Otherwise, they will deny it. I've had situations where Social Security will take the application, they'll take the appeal, but they kind of want to see what ultimately happens. They want to see a little bit more treatment. How, for example, I had a client who had cancer and they wanted to see how it was responding to the treatment as to whether or not they thought it was going to last 12 months or more. And so they kind of put that case on hold for a little bit to see how the claimant would respond to the radiation and other therapies. So sometimes that also happens, as they'll kind of put a hold on it to give them a better idea instead of just outright saying, nope, it's not going to last a year, or yes, we do think it's going to last a year. So they do sometimes play a wait and see game as well. What I typically encourage is, as soon as you realize that you are disabled and unable to work and that it's likely going to last 12 months, to go ahead and apply. The reason for that is you want to make sure that you're telling Social Security about all of your doctors. And with SSI, they can only pay back to the month after you apply, basically. So there's a timing issue there. So that's my typical recommendation is, as soon as you realize that you're going to be disabled and unable to work, apply. Worst case scenario is you go back to work in 6 months and you say, hey, I feel great. I can go ahead and withdraw my application for disability benefits. So what are SSDI benefits? We've already alluded to it a little bit. They are monthly payments that are made to individuals with a disability or blindness who also meet those work requirements. With SSDI benefits, not everybody gets the same amount. Your monthly SSDI benefit is based on the income that you made while you were able to work and what you paid into the Social Security system. You can get an estimate of your monthly benefit amount by logging into your My Social Security account. And if you're on the live, we'll go ahead and drop a link to that in the chat. And what that is you want to make sure you're on the Social Security Administration's website, but I believe it's ssa.gov/my account. And I could be wrong. It just went in the chat. So go ahead and search. You can also search My Social Security account in Google if you're watching this on the replay, and it'll pull it up for you. Log into that account. They used to send out annual, semi-annual statements of what your estimated disability and estimated retirement amount would be. They don't really do that anymore. They do sometimes. I think it depends on age, and the frequency has changed a little bit as well. But you can always access your My Social Security account online. And so sometimes I will also, if you've called and you've spoken with me and you don't know if you would qualify for SSDI, you've heard me say, well, log into your My Social Security account. It'll show you what your earnings history is. It'll show you what your estimated disability amount might be. And it'll also tell you if you're not eligible for SSDI. And so then we kind of know which direction we need to go in. So who qualifies for SSDI benefits? The people that qualify for SSDI benefits are going to be under age 65, be blind or disabled, and they will need to have worked and paid into the Social Security system for a set amount of time. So as we've kind of talked about, you've got to be disabled and unable to work for a period of at least 12 months. You've got to have paid into the system for a certain amount of time. And the additional component is you have to be under age 65. You have to be below full retirement age. Here are the work credit requirements for SSDI. Generally, you'll need 40 credits, which is 10 years of work, and 20 of those credits have to have been earned in the last 10 years, ending with the year that your disability begins. So that's how we get to that 5 of the last 10 years. You can only earn 4 credits a year. And in 2023, each $1,640 that you earn in covered earnings will get you 1 credit. So for this year, once you earn $6,560, you've earned your 4 credits. So that's the other thing, is if you've called and you've spoken with me and I've said, okay, well, have you earned probably at least $6,000 in 5 of the last 10 years? That's where I'm getting that number from. It's not totally arbitrary. There is a reason for it, and that is it. Also, younger individuals may qualify with fewer credits. And so that's another question as well. And that is direct with, you can find that information on the Social Security Administration's website. or right here. Here are the work credit requirements. As you'll see, this is kind of how many years of work you generally need in total. And this is for retirement as well. So SSI benefits are monthly payments that are made to individuals with a disability or blindness who are also below certain income and asset thresholds. Again, not everyone gets the same amount. The federal maximum for this year is $914 a month for a disabled individual. However, your monthly SSI benefit can go up if you live in a state that supplements the federal maximum. Your monthly benefit can also go down with SSI if you have other income coming into the household, whether it's earned by you through, some people will have like Etsy stores. And so they may earn a couple $100s a month by making bracelets or painting pictures or taking pictures. So they may earn a little bit of money that way. And so that will reduce the SSI benefit because that is income coming into the household. Here's who qualifies for SSI benefits. Again, under age 65 and blind or disabled and have below the thresholds of income and assets. And as I talked about before, single individuals have to have less than $2,000 in assets and married individuals have to have $3,000 or less in assets. And so that is that's the assets. As I mentioned before, income is a little bit different and it's not as black and white because there are different factors, including how many people live in a house, things like that. So income is also an issue, but if you have no income and these are your assets and you are a single individual, then you can likely apply for SSI. When you apply, your application will go through the 5-step evaluation process, and here it is. When Social Security first gets your application, at step 0, really, before they even get to this 5-step evaluation process, they first look to see, are you engaging in substantial, nope, that is step 1. Before step 1, they look to see on the SSDI side, do you have enough credits? Do you qualify from that perspective? On the SSI side, they check to make sure your income and assets are going to qualify you from that perspective. As long as you get through those thresholds, that's kind of step 0. Step 1 is, are you engaging in substantial gainful activity? That's ingrained in my head. So that's where I start. Are you engaging in substantial gainful activity? So this year, if you're earning more than $1,470 a month in gross earnings or are working more than 20 hours a week, you are engaging in substantial gainful activity and by definition cannot be found disabled by the Social Security Administration. So that's step 1. As long as you are not engaging in substantial gainful activity, your case moves to step 2. And that's where they start to look at the medical records. And they start to look to see, do you have one or more severe medically determinable impairments? As long as you have at least one severe medically determinable impairment, it will move to step 3, where they will look to see, do you meet or equal a listing? Okay. If you do meet or equal a listing, the evaluation stops there and you are approved. You will receive a congratulations letter in the mail. If you don't meet or equal a listing, then Social Security creates a residual functional capacity for you based on your medical records. And what they are going to then look at is, okay, could an individual with this RFC go back to your past relevant work? If yes, you're denied. They say you can go back and do your past work. You're not disabled. If you cannot go back to your past work, or a hypothetical individual cannot go back to your past work based on your RFC, then they go to step 5, which is where they look to see, can that hypothetical individual with that RFC engage in any other work? And so here they're taking into account your age, education, transferable skills that you may have gathered from your past work, as well as your RFC. And they are looking at all of the jobs that exist. Can you engage in any of them? And so again, when you call, sometimes what I'll say is, okay, tell me why you can't do, and I'll give based on what you're telling me your limitations are, I'll give you kind of a simple job and ask you why you can't do that. And I'm not doing that to be mean. I'm doing that to play devil's advocate and to better understand why you believe you are disabled. And 2, to help kind of lay the foundation of understanding of, okay, it's not just not being able to go back to your past work, but it's not being able to go back to even this job. Okay, so that's why I asked that question. I don't ask it every single time. It does depend on a lot of factors, but that's what they're looking at that stage. So here's all the information that you will need to apply, and you'll see it in more specifics in just a minute as well. You'll of course need basic information like your name, date of birth, social security number, mailing address. If your mailing address is different from your physical address, you do also need to provide your physical address to them. And the reason for that is because if they decide you need a consultative exam, they will need to know who is nearby your physical address to send you there. They will also ask for direct deposit information. They'll ask for marriage information and your citizenship status. They will also need to know the date you became unable to work, your work history for the last 15 years, and all of the doctors, hospitals, and clinics that you have seen related to your condition. Oftentimes, they're going to look at the year before you became disabled to present. The kind of exception to that rule almost is if you are saying you became disabled in 2012. We are in 2023 right now. If you say you became disabled in 2012, that's also the last time you worked. It's going to be really hard for them to get records that far back. A lot of doctors will only save records for 7 years. So here we are in 2023. If you're alleging a disability before 2016, that's going to be tough to prove. Unless, of course, you've got the evidence to substantiate that. But that's kind of what they're looking at, is the year prior to being disabled to now. So that way they can kind of see the progression over time. They also, of course, want to know about any other income that you've got, including any state or local assistance, any TANF benefits, any VA benefits, and any other Social Security benefits. A copy of the application can be found there, and that will look a little bit different than what we're looking at in the next few slides. The next few slides are actual screenshots from the application from a couple of years ago. So it looks a little bit different, slightly different now. But you don't do if you're working with us on the application assistance program, you don't do the initial SSDI application anyways, we do. So, but that is where you can kind of get an understanding of what information is going to be asked of you. It is a little bit more in depth than our typical intake questionnaire. We do have an intake questionnaire specific for the application assistance program, and it does include all of those questions. So it's not because we're trying to be nosy, but it's because that's what Social Security is going to want to know. So here are 4 ways to apply for SSDI benefits for adults ages 18 to 64. You can apply online directly with Social Security. You can apply over the phone directly with Social Security. You can apply with your local office directly with Social Security. You can also apply through the Beacon Disability Application Assistance Program. And again, we'll talk about what that is at the end of the webinar. So here you can see, this is kind of the screen of the online application. You want to make sure if you're doing it yourself, you want to make positive that you are on the Social Security Administration's website. You do not want to be inputting this information onto another website unless you are aware that that's what you're doing. For example, if you're filling out our intake form, then it's okay to provide that information as long as you know that's what you're doing. If you are filling out our intake form thinking that that is also an application for SSDI benefits, it's not. It's the first step in our program to applying for them, but it's not the actual application itself. So here you'll see who's completing the application. And then here's the information about the applicant. You'll see they'll want the name, social, date of birth, gender, vision. And then during the last 14 months, has the applicant been disabled and unable to work? When did that start? Have you previously applied and been denied for any benefits? And have you been diagnosed with a condition that's expected to end in death? Next is the reentry number. As you will see, that is very, very important. If you have to exit and come back to the application. Again, this is if you're doing it direct with Social Security. You'll need that reentry number. If you don't have it, then you have to start a new application all over again. Social Security doesn't have the reentry number, and they won't ever ask you for it. So that reentry number is just for you, and it's just so that when you submit your application, or when you're in the process of submitting your application, if you don't finish and submit all in one sitting, you'll be able to come back in. Okay. Additional identification information that they'll ask for are any other names. If you've got a maiden name, a prior married name, a nickname that sometimes you go by. If your name is Robert, but you'll go by Bobby or Bob, and that sometimes is what is actually on your medical records instead of Robert, make sure to put that down. If you've ever used any other Social Security number, they want to know that as well. Here's the information about the marriage. They'll ask if you're currently married, spouse's current name, social, date of birth. They want to know the date of the marriage, the place of the marriage, and the type of the marriage. If you have any prior marriages, they'll want to know information about any prior marriages that lasted 10 years or more, or that ended due to the death of your spouse, irrespective of how long the marriage lasted. They also want to know about your children. If you have any minors that are under age 18, if you have any children that are between 18 and 19 that are still in high school, or if they are older than 18, but they became disabled prior to 22. So they'll want to know about all of that. And then they'll want to know about military service prior to 1968. As far as employer details, here is what they are looking for. It depends on how many past jobs you've had. Generally, they will need to know the names and addresses of all the employers that you worked for last year and this year. They will need to know the dates of employment for all employers last year and this year. If you've had any self-employment information, they'll want to know about that. They'll want to know about estimated earnings last year and this year. Did you ever work in a job where Social Security taxes were not deducted or withheld? And did your spouse work for the railroad for 5 years or more? So all of these questions serve a purpose, and they are to make sure that you are the last two are to see if there are any other benefits that you may qualify for. The rest of them is so Social Security can kind of compare it to what they've got on their end to make sure that it's not totally off. They will also, I think it's in the next section, ask more specifics about your work history for the last 15 years. So here is where they will ask for direct deposit information. They'll ask for the checking account or the account number. It doesn't matter if it's checking or savings. And then they will also ask for the routing number. And you could get that from either a check that you've got or your bank directly. They will also ask for questions about other benefits, including, are your conditions related to work in any way? Wondering if you might be eligible for workers' compensation benefits. They'll want to know, are you now able to work? When did you become unable to work? And then do you have a parent who receives 1/2 of their support from you? That, by and large, concludes the non-medical portion of the SSDI application. And then you get into the conditions. And so you will want to list all of the conditions that limit your ability to work. Everything. They are all considered whether or not you're currently receiving treatment for them. And if you don't know the medical diagnoses, use your own words, whether that's just low back pain, because you don't know, the official medical terminology. That's okay. You're not a doctor. And even if you are, it's okay. Just include all of the conditions. And if you have more than 10 conditions, then you'll go ahead and check that box at the bottom, and you will finish it at the end of the application where you say, okay, I have more than 10 conditions that impact my ability to function and work. Here is the rest of my list. It'll ask about your height and your weight. And then it'll ask for information about your doctors. And so you'll be able to add your doctors here as well as hospitals and clinics. They will want to know not only the names of the doctors, hospitals, and clinics, but the address, the phone numbers, and then the dates that you were first seen. So for hospitals, it does differentiate by inpatient, outpatient, and emergency department. So if you started in the ED, you were moved to inpatient, those are 2 separate visits. Typically, they're combined into one hospital note, but it's important to kind of differentiate and delineate. That way we know, okay, we are looking for an ED visit on this day, but we're also looking to make sure it went to inpatient. Same with outpatient. That doesn't happen as much necessarily where, you start outpatient and you wind up inpatient, but it can. Same with if you start outpatient and you wind up in the ED and then you're discharged from the ED. Whatever it is, if you go to different parts of the hospital, make sure you're including all of that in the list. You'll also want to have not only the date you were first seen, but the date you were most recently seen. And then for outpatient visits, if you have any future appointments scheduled. We, of course, don't schedule our ED visits, and often, unless we have an impending surgery, don't schedule upcoming inpatient visits to hospitals. You'll also want to tell them about the conditions that were treated by the facility and the types of treatment that you received. There's also a portion of the application that'll talk about tests, whether you've received any imaging, EEG, nerve conduction studies, sleep studies, stress tests, go on and on, blood work, things like that. Any kind of testing that you have received. In this part where you are adding their information, they will ask about tests, and it, I believe, will allow you to include up to 3 tests. So if you have more than 3 tests, what I usually do is I put that in the types of treatment received, is I will say, also this doctor ordered blood work, or this doctor also ordered a mammogram, or this doctor also ordered an MRI of the thoracic spine, things like that. That way, the reason why is so Social Security knows what they're looking for, so they can make sure that they are getting all of the relevant records and that they have all of the relevant records to make a good decision on. Okay, same with the medications. They'll want to know the name of the prescription. They'll want to know who prescribed it. Why are you taking it? Like, what condition is it supposed to help? And then whether or not you have any side effects from it. Sometimes, a note on the side effects, sometimes if you're taking, 5 different medicines, you don't know which medication is causing which side effect. It's okay to kind of put unknown, but my side effects from the medications, when I take these 3 every morning are drowsiness or frequency of urination or dizziness, whatever it is, but you can't quite pinpoint which of the 3 it is, and your doctor isn't sure which of the 3 it is. It's okay to say, I take these 3 every morning, and an hour later, here's what happens. So I don't know which of the 3 is causing it, but it is a side effect. You'll get into work history and education. Again, it's your work history for the last 15 years. They'll want to know if you have more than one, they want to know just kind of this list: your job title, the company or industry it was in, the day you started, and the day you ended. If you have just one job in the last 15 years, they'll want to know a lot more detailed information about that job. So it just depends. They also will want to know your highest level of education, the year that you most recently completed education, and the name of the school. They'll also want to know if you have any additional training, any kind of OC rehab, anything like that. They'll want to know that in the application as well. And then they will ask you to electronically sign, or they will mail to you to sign a release form. And that is Form SSA 827. And that allows the Social Security Administration to request and receive your medical records. It's very important that you sign this so that they can request and receive those records, so that they can review them and that they can make a decision based on the medical records. Once you submit your application, here's a little bit about what to expect. Social Security will provide that confirmation of your application. If you apply through us, what they do is they mail it to you, and they are going to ask you to review it and to sign it and send it back. Once you sign that and send it back, as you'll see, it's not the whole application either, it's just part of it. But they'll ask you to sign it and send it back. Once you send it back, then they review the whole application. Social Security will contact you if they need any type of additional information or additional documentation. Again, if we're working together, they usually reach out to both of us. There are certain instances where we will ask you for your help. Sometimes Social Security needs help in obtaining your medical records. They will also send supplemental questionnaires to better understand how your conditions impact your ability to function. And that is where we will always ask for you to fill those out. And that is because I look at those forms as testimony without having to go before a judge. We are always happy to talk with you about those forms, talk with you about what Social Security is looking for, talk with you about the expectations, and remind you about the importance of honesty. But it's going to come best from you. Only you know what you're dealing with on a daily basis. They will also sometimes send it to a third party that you have told them about in the application, such as a family member, a friend, spouse, significant other, things like that. And they will ask for that person's input on your ability to function and what your limitations are. After they look at everything, they do make a decision on the claim, and then they send it to you. If you get denied, if it's a medical reason that they say that you are not disabled according to our rules, but you are disabled and unable to work, appeal it. Just because they said you're not disabled does not mean that you are not disabled. When you appeal, when you review that denial, make sure they listed all of your impairments. Sometimes they forget some. Also want to make sure that they've received records from all of your treating sources. Again, not only sometimes do they forget some, but sometimes the treating sources don't send in the records and Social Security doesn't follow up and actually get them, nor do they let us know that they're having a hard time. So those are two important things to do. Again, if they say you're not disabled according to our rules, but you and your doctor say that you are disabled and unable to work, appeal that non-medical denial or appeal the medical denial. If it's a non-medical denial, you want to make sure it's right. If it's not right, then you can appeal. Some of the common non-medical denials of Social Security disability are you don't have enough work credits, that's SSDI only, you're still working, and you're earning more than SGA levels. So if you are not still working, not earning above SGA levels, and you do have enough work credits, but they denied you for one of those reasons, go ahead and appeal that as well. And that is different proof that you will need to show. At that point, you're not showing them that you're disabled. You're showing them that you would qualify for SSDI. You're showing them that, yes, you do have the requisite work credits, or that you are not actively working, or that you are not earning more than SGA levels. Okay. A little bit about our application assistance program. As I mentioned at the outset, this is a new program. This is our first run of it. We have long helped individuals with their initial application for SSDI benefits. What we are doing through this program is we are helping you submit your initial SSDI application directly with SSA. Not everybody wants help at the initial stage. Some people do. If you are one of those some people do, this might be for you. For more information about the program and to see if you qualify, you can go to that link. We'll also drop it in the chat, and it will be down below on the replay. And if you go ahead and put the information in there, it gets pushed to us. We take a look at it. As long as everything checks out, you're automatically sent an email to schedule a time to chat with us about greater information to make sure that it is something that you can qualify for, as well as to answer any questions that you have. The application assistance program, you have access to not only our webinar replays like this one, but exclusive videos regarding the application and the disability process. One of the things that I've found is that my clients tend to have the same questions over and over and over and over and over again. Some of them are too shy to ask me, and I mentioned it to them. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I've been wondering." And I'm like, well, you could have just asked. So that's the purpose of those videos, as well as the video bank that discusses different aspects of the disability process. We do have that bank ready. We are constantly, especially right now, adding more to it. So that way it will have kind of a frequently asked question. It's going to have explanations of some of the forms that Social Security sends out. And that way it just gives you additional insight and information into the disability process without having to feel like you are interrupting somebody's day. First, you are not. And second, it kind of helps those that are more like me, where I'm going to try to figure it out myself instead of asking somebody else, which is sometimes crazy. But it will also have access to your own client portal. And so within the client portal, you can upload documents, you can ask questions, you can receive ongoing support and assistance. We love the client portal. We started the client portal about a year ago now, and it's fabulous. Being able to have clients upload pictures, even if it's just, sending a picture of a prescription that, hey, I wanted to let you know that they just switched this prescription, or just sending a note. It goes automatically into your case file. We've got it. We can easily respond to it. It's fabulous. Okay, here is our contact information. You can always feel free to give us a call, send us an email. That is the website for the application assistance program. If you go there, again, that link is in the chat right now, and it is also on the live down below, or the replay down below. You will see that it kind of explains a little bit about what to expect, and it's got a few different spots where you can click on apply now or join now. And that's what you'll go ahead and do. It'll take you to a separate page where you put the information into there. That information gets pushed directly to us. We take a look at it ever so briefly. Likely we'll send you a pretty quick email back to schedule a time to chat at a time convenient to you where we're going to be available. That helps to cut the back and forth phone calls. I can't tell you how much time, we all really spend on the phone back and forth, leaving message, and it's fine. But if you can just schedule a time that's convenient for everybody, and that I'm going to be available or somebody's going to be available to chat, it's perfect. So That's what we ask you to do. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call, send us an email, use that link. And like I said, that link is where you will be able to provide some information. We look at it, and then you can schedule a call with us shortly thereafter. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for joining. I'm looking forward to speaking with you soon. Have a wonderful day.